right, here we are, Temple of Zucca. We're in the gallery, first reading out of the gallery. We're reading the Recursive Radicalism of Nick Fuentes. This is part 6 of this book I wrote, and I'm reading to you. Please, if you have any comments about what I'm reading, put them in the comments. You don't need to say hello. You don't need to say hi. You don't even need to say, what is it you're reading? All right? It's right there on the cover. Okay? It's right on the cover of the book. So here we are, the Synod of Outlaw Voices and the Historical Trauma Engine. Denunciations, incorporations, memory politics, and the new post-empire discourse covenant. Where two forbidden voices meet, a third space opens, one not policed by the old gods. Every trauma that becomes political becomes a liturgy. To speak honestly in the new empire is to trespass ritually. Convergence, cross-pollination in the new outlaw mainstream. When two stigmatized speakers discover that their audiences already overlap, it reveals a deeper truth about cultural formation. The new mainstream is not decreed but above, is not decreed from above but assembled from the fringes by listeners who intuit coherence long before institutions acknowledge it. In digital politics, reputational size is a delayed metric. One becomes large only after one's name circulates in hostile mouths, and only afterward does the speaker realize that the audience has silently doubled, tripled, or congealed into a new tribe. The rise of simultaneous dissident figures, libertarian, populist, Catholic, identitarian, shows that influence is no longer tied to legacy institutions, but to shared fields of emotional resonance, taboo, courage, and anti-imperial skepticism. Every invitation between powerful dissident voices is not merely logistical, but symbolic. A recognition that both have passed through the same gauntlets of denunciation, censorship, and reputational assassination, and have emerged mythically charged rather than diminished. The feeling that the conversation must happen is itself an omen. Digital tribes sense when two mythic nodes must merge because narratives require junction, just as rivers require deltas. When two figures who were once told to denounce each other finally sit in the same room, the denunciation economy collapses for a moment, revealing a latent desire for coalition rather than purity. The new dissident mainstream forms not by agreement, but by adjacency. Different genealogies of critique, libertarian anti-war activism, Catholic nationalism, post-left skepticism, find themselves orbiting the same gravitational wound in the political order. Thus, convergent discussion becomes an act of historical realignment, a ritual in which fracture lines are reinterpreted as structural scams of an emerging post-imperial political anthropology. Denunciation, attack, and the theater of vanquishment. Denunciation is the modern political landscape, is less a moral gesture than a territorial ritual, an attempt to defend turf by symbolically banishing figures who inconveniently refuse to disappear. Every accusation, racist, fed, Nazi heretic, is not meant to describe, but to silence, functioning as a firewall, preventing unauthorized empathy from forming between contested groups. When a figure attempts to vanquish a guest under the guise of an interview, it reveals a deeper insecurity. The institution fears that the forbidden voice may prove more compelling to the audience than the sanctioned host. The outrage economy thrives on asymmetry. An established personality may attempt to annihilate a rising figure only to discover that their audience sympathizes with the ambushed rather than the ambusher. Embarrassment becomes a political weapon. When an attempted public shaming backfires, both audiences learn that the old purification rituals no longer function with their former enchantment. To take the L in public is a spiritual discipline. Refusal to do so reveals that the host was more committed to mythic supremacy than to truth-seeking. A dissonant cannot be vanquished by ridicule if the audience interprets the ridicule as bullying. Contempt loses its potency when courage is admired more than conformity. Thus, denunciation becomes inverted. The attempt to destroy the outsider often consecrates him, marking him as a figure strong enough to withstand the ritual flames. Incorporation, fragment coalitions, and the post-empire media order. In a decentralized media environment, no faction can vanquish any other. The ecology has become a multi-headed hydra where suppression merely drives the suppressed voice into new channels, often amplifying it. The insistence upon incorporation rather than exclusion signals a maturation, a recognition that dissident ecosystems must syncretize if they are to survive institutional hostility. When a populist commentator acknowledges the value of a more radical figure or vice versa, they engage in a form of mythic hospitality, an admission that different rhetorical intensities may serve the same ultimate cause. A dissonant no longer measures worth by institutional approval, but by the gravitational pull exerted on disparate tribes. When someone becomes big enough that you can't argue, he shouldn't be here. He has crossed the legitimacy threshold. The new media order operates via co-frequencies, not hierarchies. Figures align when their narrative wavelengths resonate, even if their ideological spectra diverge. The older paradigm of vanquishing rivals collapses under mimetic pluralism. The public prefers multivocal dissidence to singular orthodoxy. What once constituted mainstream is now a ghost, hollowed out by its inability to host authentic disagreement. The real mainstream is terraformed daily by creators who hold no institutional license. The rise of voices like Tucker and Candace Owens is not a deviation, but a sign. The apparatus can no longer monopolize moral framing and must rely on internal dissenters to stabilize its mythic architecture. But internal dissenters themselves risk irrelevance unless they are willing to engage the outlaw fringe. Refusal to speak with the stigmatized results in cultural sterility. Thus, incorporations become the new political sacrament. To speak across factional lines is to acknowledge a shared density in the ruins of old informational priesthood. Historical memory, trauma, politics, and the Holocaust as civilization liturgy. The Holocaust functions not only as a historical tragedy, but as a civilizational liturgy, a recurring ritual of moral framing invoked to define political legitimacy in post-war West. To question the dominant Holocaust narrative, whether in detail or in framing, is interpreted not as historical inquiry, but as a threat to the post-war moral architecture that justifies global liberal hegemony. Thus, the debate is rarely about numbers. It is about sovereignty over trauma, about who may speak about what and under what emotional constraints. The trauma identity linkage, if they critique us, they will kill us, serves as a political operating system, one that structures Jewish identity far more centrally than religious belief in many modern contexts. The identity through trauma creates a psychological veto power. Any critique of Israel policy becomes framed as reenactment of ancestral danger, rendering rational discussion impossible. Libertarian analysts object to this because it creates perpetual foreign entanglement. Identitarian analysts object because it creates asymmetrical moral power. Both objects become the trauma is being universalized and imposed upon the polity. The insistence that 6 million is sacred, inviolate, and beyond historiographic analysis reveals that the number has become symbolic rather than empirical, a metaphysical integer that anchors a post-war theology. Meanwhile, critics of Holocaust centrally are rarely denying tragedy. They are resisting the idea that one group's trauma should serve as the axis mundi of Western moral decision-making. The tension arises because trauma demands reverence, but politics demands negotiation. When historical memory becomes a secular sacrament, disagreement becomes heresy. The rise of Holocaust skepticism among youth reveal a generational desire to renegotiate inherited guilt scripts and to reclaim political agency from narratives that predate their birth. Yet the moral intellectual danger lies in swinging from critique of the trauma liturgy to denial of suffering. The path forward must disentangle memory from its metaphysical jurisdiction. Thus, the true question is not did it happen, but who may interpret what it means. A struggle for narrative sovereignty disguised as a historiographic dispute. Honesty, Christian identity, and the ethics of speech in the ruined imperium. The declaration, "I am not a racist, I am a Christian," marks an identity realignment, a move from ethno-metaphysics to universal moral accountability, altering one's orientation towards power, vengeance, and compassion. In a landscape of escalating tribalism, Christian identity becomes radical precisely because it refuses infinite enmity. It binds critique to mercy and restrains the temptation towards sacrificial violence. When dissident figures articulate anti-war convictions rooted in Christian ethics, refusing to justify killing even those they do not wish to live alongside, they fracture the caricature assigned to them by hostile institutions. The insistence on honesty as political method destabilizes the outage economy. Transparent speech negates the aura of conspiracy, forcing listeners to confront sincerity rather than projection. In the absence of honesty, factions decay into self-caricature, but where honesty breaks through, unexpected alliances form between former enemies and ideological strangers. To prioritize spiritual identity over ethnic grievance is to choose transcendence over resentment. Such figures become dangerous to all factions because they cannot be easily weaponized. A dissident who foregrounds compassion complicates the state's attempt to position him as a threat. Moral reasoning disrupts surveillance categories more effectively than rhetorical militancy. Thus, honesty is not merely virtue, it is a strategy, an epistemic weapon against a systems reliant on caricature and fear. That is going to be the end of part 6 of the Recursive Radicalism of Nick Fuentes. Check out my website, zuccagallery.com. Come into this gallery that's right behind you at 1301 Grand Ave, and I will see you guys later.